Hi, I'm Lenora.
I'm Kristen. Hello.
I'm Isabel. Hola.
Hi, I'm Kristen Tetzi, author of The Age of the Child, which is a novel written from the child-free perspective that challenges negative stereotypes of child-free people, positive stereotypes of parents, and the pro-life movement in general.
Hi, my name is Lenora Fay. I'm a child-free lifestyle advocate. I'm a co-founder of Childfree Media, which is a network leading the conversation for those interested in the child-free lifestyle. And we presented the 2022 Virtual Child-Free Convention, which you can now watch replays of on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm the child-free friend you always wanted but never knew you needed. I organize trips for child-free people, child-free women particularly. I am the founder and firebrand of the Uprising Spark and host of the Honest Uproar podcast, which technically it's ended, but you can still go and listen to child-free stories. And we are the three founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. Today's episode is, so we're having this discussion today about what should we talk about? Like, there's still so many things we haven't talked about, but just for some reason today was like, we're kind of drawing a blank. But I had something come up in my mind because yesterday I met up with a friend I hadn't seen for a while. She got married like 4 years ago. We've known each other for almost over 20 years. And we were having a conversation. We're just, having dinner and having a conversation. And she was like, so, me and my husband, we don't want to have kids. And that was the first time I heard her say that, which made me really excited inside because now I have another childhood friend who's like one of my oldest friends. And so I was like, oh, yes. And then she started saying, talking about her husband a little bit and how he has so many issues with his parents and that his childhood was not the best. She didn't at any point say this is the reason why he doesn't want to have children. But that got me thinking, there's this myth that goes around, and I've been asked as well, at least on one occasion, why are you child free? Is it because you had a horrible childhood? Is it because it was painful and sad and your parents didn't take care of you? So we just want to I'm sure there are people who are child free for that reason, but I think we want to just sort of debunk that myth because I know that not all child-free people have had horrible childhoods, and that's maybe not the reason. So, what do you think, Lenora?
I mean, it's no secret that I did not really enjoy childhood, but I'm thinking about a conversation that I had recently where you get to a certain point, or you can get to a certain point in life where you stop blaming your upbringing for things and you take responsibility for your life, and therefore stop making decisions or excuses based on the past, right? So I guess where I'm at right now with things, I saw what my mother, how much energy my mother put into raising children, and I knew that I didn't want to do that. I thought I had to, but I didn't actually want to do it, and so that was, a big thing, like a big influence for me. And I could have gone the route where I, could have given my children the kind of upbringing that I didn't have. And it's not because my upbringing was lacking of love or anything. I just didn't feel a connection to parents and, raised in a cult, all that good stuff. And I could have raised my children differently, how I see my brother raise his two kids, right? But I'm definitely at the point where, I can talk about and reflect on my upbringing, but does that really influence my decision now? Because technically I could still make the decision to have a kid now. I'm about to be 40. But look, women are having their first kids at this age. So, look, I could still choose to have children. And knowing what I know now about life and where I'm at in my life, I could. I'm not saying I'm going to because I don't want to at all. But I could make a decision from
This is over, you know that, right? If you have a child for girl, absolutely.
You guys can continue on without me. Oh no, I don't think anyone would be bothered. Everything I could continue without. Can you imagine? Oh my god, there'd be a few people pissed off at me. I think. I'm not saying that's what I'm going to do, but I'm just saying that at this point in my life, I could make a decision going forward that maybe would be different from the choice I made in my 20s, because I know that I don't hold my upbringing or my parents responsible anymore for the decisions I make. I have. And again, it's not because I've absolved anyone from that shit, but I recognize it and I view it a little bit differently with a little more understanding. Still don't agree with it, but it doesn't have a hold on me. I'm still not going, oh my God, because of my upbringing, I don't want to have kids. I could be like that, but I'm not. I'm genuinely not. So, and it's nice to be in that position because I still maintain my desire to be child free. Like I have no interest in being a mother. Not at all. And again, a very different point in my life from when I initially made that decision. And it still feels right. So that's my view on it. I don't, this is not to knock anyone that still is making decisions based on their upbringing. Totally valid. I get it. I do. This is just where I'm at personally with things.
What do you think, Kristen?
I think I think to some degree it's impossible to make any decision that isn't in some way influenced by your upbringing, because you are who you are because of a lot of nurturing is involved in that one way or the other. But I think the whole question of whether someone doesn't have kids because of their childhood, as if first of all it's like is trying to explain something that is being positioned as something wrong with you. So, oh, do you not want kids because this? Like, who hurt you? Um, when surely people had crappy childhoods and chose not to have children, just like people had crappy childhoods and chose to have children to correct their parents' mistakes or to have someone to love because their parents don't love them. So I think people make any number of decisions based on their childhood or not based on their childhood, and whether to have kids is just one of those things. Um, and that question, not you posing it, Isabel, but the very idea that, oh, something must have gone wrong in your childhood, that's why you don't have kids, like that probably bothers me more than anything else people say about child-free people. I don't know why. I think it's because it's just so it's just so if
Does it bother you more than people saying that child-free people are selfish? Just trying to.
it
We know you hate that.
That's a good
no,
question.
I hate it when child-free people say that they're selfish.
Okay.
Unless they are selfish, but I hate it when child-free people say, yeah, not having kids is selfish. I think those two things bother me the same amount. Yeah.
That's saying something.
Yeah, you know that because she actually
We
does hate that.
we've seen you get into fights.
Yeah. Knock down, drag out.
With strangers, yeah. I love those. Those are the best. My when I thought about this, I had the same thought that you just mentioned, Kristen, regarding I've heard people say, not a lot, but I've heard people say I had a horrible childhood and I don't want anyone else to I don't want to repeat the same mistakes that my parents did, so I don't want to have children. But I've also heard people say, my parents made a lot of mistakes with me and so I had a child because I want to fix that. Like, I'm gonna give my children everything that my parents didn't give me. And I'm not talking about material things, I'm talking more about emotional support and love and what have you. I don't know. Attention, I guess. So I definitely believe that there is, of course, a part of us in our upbringing that sort of, I wouldn't say dictates our choices, but it influences our choices for sure. But whenever I think about why I'm child free, I don't. I mean, I can think of so many reasons, but none of the reasons I can think of for myself specifically have to do with anything I lived. Any experience I had as a child or my parents or nothing is not connected at all. In my case, my parents, they're nurturing, I would say in general, and I think that being a good Latina woman, you want to please your parents all the time because this is something that is embedded in our culture. And both of them really want to be grandparents, especially my mom. They really want to be, she really wants to be a grandma. So if I were to sort of follow what I've been taught and what I have been exposed to since I was a very young girl, which is your parents have the ultimate word, your parents are always right, you need to please your parents, you need to make them happy because they brought you into this world and they gave you everything that you have, therefore you have to repay them somehow. That's sort of in a way how Latino people think, socially speaking. If I were to follow that, which has been like I said, ingrained in me since I was born, I would be a mother by now. So like I said, to me, it's definitely, it doesn't equate at all in my decision. But if it had to equate, then I would have been a mother.
See, I following that, I'm I still would be child free because my natural instinct is to just is just to fight against anything that is presented to me as the way to do things. And I own that more than I ever have in my entire life. Today I was having a conversation with someone about infatuation versus love and the expectation of there being a label and the expectation of there being an end goal in a relationship. And I'm like, that none of that works for me. None of that works for me. Right? Because it doesn't, because to me, the thing is like, I feel trapped. My immediate response is like, you're caging me. I'm not saying that's what the other person's doing, but I'm just saying like, that's what that, and that's, not just in relationships, but and when I think of my upbringing, the expectation of how we were supposed to live, the quote unquote rules we were supposed to follow, my natural instinct has always been to fight against it. Like, again, I was that kid in school that was standing up for my classmates when the teacher would propose an idea that nobody actually liked. I was that kid that would go to the teacher and say, can we modify this? I've always been like that. And so, if I were to, like, I can't see myself abiding by like that scenario you presented. I think of, and this is from a religious standpoint, this is not from a cultural standpoint, but it's again definitely religious. Because again, in my 20s I went back to that community for a time, and it was my own choice, and I went in with my own understanding, not from what I was taught, yes, but it was from my adult understanding, again, early 20s. And it's still, it was like, I enjoyed it, but when it came to the expectations of how you should live, including things like marriage and having kids, it still didn't feel right. And I found my way out of it. So to me, that tells me that I would still be fighting it. I don't think there's any scenario, unless you like tie me down and force me to have a kid, that I would have had kids. Because it's my natural instinct just to go against everything that's presented to me. Although I do pay taxes, as you guys know. But
Yeah, we know. She's the first one sending her declaration that they don't, Canadian government, you don't have to worry for her. She'll pay taxes. It's interesting what you just said, because you were raised in a cult.
Mhm.
And there's no place that I can think of, other than the military, that you really have to like follow like rules and orders. Like I can think of the military, and I can think of like
My
religion.
upbringing.
Cults, yes,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
if we're talking about a cult.
Mhm.
Okay. So do you think it was because you were born and you were raised in this environment that you are completely opposed to rules and anything that makes you feel tied down? And
Well, that and being a Sagittarius. I think there
blame it on the stars.
I think and I mean, look, I had no hope of being normal, because I think there's more things at play. Because consider this, I am biracial. I have two opposing views in my head at all times. I'm also bisexual. Like I am split, and I'm not bipolar. I'm not, but like when I can use humor as the only way I can kind of cope with the weirdness that is me, because I come from two different things all the time. And I feel I'm not quite sure where it's going, where it's leading in life, but I just feel that I was not meant, and I'm not opposed to authority. I've never been, well, no, I have been arrested, but I was a teenager. I can't get into that. I have no criminal record. I have no criminal record as an adult. So I'm not out there fighting in the streets per se, but when it comes to societal expectations, I think because I'm a product of a relationship that bucked that societal expectation. My parents had an interracial marriage, and that was very challenging for them growing up. This was in, the Canadian prairies where I currently live, but during a time where that was not necessarily accepted. So I think it's in my blood. Like I don't know. It's just, I'm a combination of trauma on both sides. And I just feel like it's really manifested in me to the point where I'm like, I question things, and I don't feel I'm confrontational about it. I want people to speak up about their own experiences. That's where I'm at in this point in time. So it's just, but naturally, yeah, I can't fall in line with it. I never have been able to. I've tried, not very successfully.
I just have this visual in my head of like a cartoon box and a cartoon Lenora in this big hand from the outside trying to like stuff you in it, and you just go boing, and they try again and you go boing.
Yep.
And maybe, and one of those boings is like a relationship, like a romantic relationship, because it seems like you're as unopposed to having feelings for someone as you are opposed to those feelings being assumed to be eternal. Like don't count on me feeling this way for you, because that commits me to feeling this way to you forever. Like if there's some kind of commitment involved in saying you like somebody or saying you love somebody, it's like then you're stuck.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to work through that, but not sure how it's going. Yeah, because yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. But okay, so that explanation you just gave, which is very accurate, that still influences me to not have children because I don't want to deal with that. I recognized early on in my life that if I were to have a child or children, there's a lot of that could easily be in those kids. Do I want to spend my life dealing with that? No. Like I'd have to find like the calmest, most dull person to procreate with to maybe kind of balance that out. And I don't want to deal with that either. So it just never made any sense to me. And I think it's more about myself, that what I would be passing on that influences my decision to not have kids more so than any upbringing, to be honest, because I recognize my inner power. I recognize the spark that is me, and I want to foster that and fuel that into something, turn that into something. I don't want to give birth to another human that has that I then have to raise, because my poor mother. I mean, I think I have more, I'd be more equipped to deal with that, but I don't want to deal with that. I deal with myself. That's good enough, you know? And I'm quite serious in that. Like I don't want to raise that, because that it took a long time for me to get to this point where I'm okay with myself and I can mostly understand myself and embrace myself. And the thought of having to do that to another human, like, look, I've got nephews and I see that in both of my nephews. And so I can be there as a support system to those nephews as they're working through their own stuff, recognizing myself in part of them. And that's good enough, more than good enough for me, you know? But that part definitely influences my choice to not have kids to this day, is that we don't need another mini Lenora. One's enough.
You were also kind of a rebel when you were young, Kristen.
Oh.
Yep. Yep.
Not as bad as some, but I had fun.
Yeah.
So
Does Lenora's, like what she just told us, does it resonate with you in any way?
I think there has been an equally strong desire to not. I did have a problem with authority. I hated authority. Like authority, I wanted my dad to never come home, which isn't to say I wanted him to die, but I just wanted him to go somewhere. I wanted him to go on vacation. I didn't want him telling me what to do. I didn't want his presence around where I couldn't feel free or independent. I liked sneaking out, you know. I hated the principal. I hated my teachers. I was just a problem. Like I was probably told to adjust my attitude or whatever enough times that it belongs on my forehead. It was because I just didn't like authority. I just had I don't know why. But I think that had to do with feeling confined. And I also had the same relationship thing Lenora has. Like I would like somebody until they found out I liked them, and then I would stop because I didn't want to have to continue liking them. I mean, it just suddenly felt like this commitment that I had gotten stuck into. And I don't think there's a bigger commitment than kids. I mean, in addition to all the other things I'm not interested in about parenthood, the commitment is probably like, there's just no out. You can get out of anything but that.
mm-hmm.
That's true. I was thinking just the same thing when Lenora was talking about, love, but she was talking about it in like when you were talking about it, Lenora, like sort of like in a point of view of our relationship, but you can always get a divorce. You can always.
But I don't like, to me, I don't want to, because I mean, Kristen's experiences with divorce and marriage have really been helpful in the sense that, I see the value in all of that. For me, I am, because again, I've always said like I would try marriage once, but again, I do take it seriously because of what my parents' example is, that I would be fully committed, but
seriously.
Well, no, because see, that's the thing. It's
just not life and death seriously.
Well, no, I kind of do, because I saw what my parents had, and that was pretty brilliant. And it was the right thing for them. That's a high expectation for me to live up to, which I knew in my younger years I would not work. And I don't even know if there will be an age where, again, it would have to be the person, but I am so not like ready for that because that freaks me the hell out. And that's okay. I never have to be ready for that because like, why? I like my life.
Yeah.
There was something else that you said that I was going to comment on. it's constantly evolving. But bottom line, like with the get divorced thing, because again, that's programming that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And this is where I am fearful of, it does scare me how much cults do continue to affect, because it's been a long time since I've been involved. But there are things that I'm still deconstructing from, and divorce is one of them. To be okay, like I don't care if people get divorced, but for myself, based out of respect for what my parents had and what was ingrained in me as since birth, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around it, which is why I won't even like really joke about it. I do take it that seriously. And again, Kristen's, you've been very open with that, and that has really helped me evolve my thinking about what it means to get into a relationship, get married, get divorced. But I was just going to say, like, you have found your person, right? So, I believe that's possible. I do believe like that's a commitment, and that takes work. And that's fine. I have to, but I just I know myself, as you guys know, if I'm passionate about something, I see it through no matter how difficult it is. You guys know that. So it's just would require me to be passionate about a person to want to have that kind of relationship. And then I would make it work. I know I would, but until that happens, I don't think about it, because I'm not passionate about the idea.
See, that's the way I think about marriage and divorce. Like, I'm not saying that I'm all excited about the idea of divorce, because, well, really, I just see it as a breakup.
Right.
I mean, people
Just
break up.
Paperwork. Lots of paperwork.
It is. But like, I do agree that if you like, it needs to be the person that you're passionate about, that you want it to work with. Like with my previous two husbands, if one of them had said, well, let's go to marriage counseling or something. I mean, what a waste of time, because the only reason you would go to that is if you really love this person and want it to work.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, I mean, I guess we can go to counseling and see if we can find ways to argue better or whatever and stay married or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the thought of staying married makes the pit of your stomach sink as much as the thought of having a child, that there's nothing, it's over.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to stay. There's no reason to try, in my opinion. I think people try too hard and too long just because they think they're not allowed to get divorced. And life's too damn short for that.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what Isabel thinks about that.
Well, it's interesting because I'm, as many times, in the middle, just in between both of you. I mean, I'm not scared of divorce. I would definitely, if it comes to that, I would definitely get a divorce. Fine. I don't have any religious or any preconceived idea about divorce in the sense that it's a wrong thing to do at all. But see, in my case, I'm trying to minimize as much as possible the risk of divorcing. And I know that's something that's very hard to do, because you marry someone and then they can change, or things can happen, and and it's just the control freak in me who thinks I can sort of minimize something. But in that sense, what I've been trying to do is not settle. So I could have been married at least 3 times. Well, not 3 times, but there are 3 guys who, I could have been married by this time. And I haven't taken the step because I knew that person was not my person. So I'm sort of like Lenora in that sense. I want to find my person, and I want to, hopefully that'll help me minimize the need of divorce later on in life. But if it comes to that, I'll do it. I'll sign the papers.
Okay, so I won't propose marriage just yet, then. We got to wait a little.
You keep teasing me with this.
Well, Kristen's already married. No. Yeah, it's how did we get on this topic? I'm like, wait, what was our original topic?
I was gonna say, this actually has a lot to do with, in a way, I was trying to connect the 2 topics, because we started talking about, your upbringing and how that influenced your decision to be child-free or not, right? So horrible childhood equals you don't want to have children for some people, and we're trying to debunk that myth. But, talking about now relationships and sort of commitment, and because this is something that we've carried with ourselves, in our personalities, and the ideas that we form since we're very young. We've been raised in a certain way. Not only our parents have influenced us, but also society has influenced us. There's just so many things that, of course, make up our whole characters and whatnot. And something came to mind, and I thought to myself, how people say, oh, your parents did the best that they could. with the tools that they had, with the information that they had, with the experience as a child that they had, because, especially if you're the eldest, first-time parents. So they did the best that they could, and that sort of explains their shortcomings in a way. I don't want that. I don't want to be in a position where people are like, "Oh, you did the best that you could," to explain my own shortcomings. That actually feels frustrating,
Mhm.
like you didn't actually make an effort. Like, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think sometimes and often parents don't do the best they can. um, and I think in that, I mean, sure, the people who do the best they can do the best they can. But I don't know, it depends on what those shortcomings are because I don't know under what conditions somebody would say that, but I have seen on Twitter and elsewhere a lot of people um, kind of what seems to me going overboard on their parents' qualities as if not being whatever a perfect parent is enough to induce childhood trauma. Like someone actually used the word trauma for having been exposed to some R-rated movie when they were a kid, not a porno, nothing, wildly inappropriate, but just some movie. Or maybe a parent said something one time that hurt their feelings. That's going to happen. I mean, it hurts your feelings as a kid. You don't forget it. Ideally, by the time you're an adult, you realize, okay, yeah, that hurt my feelings, but that doesn't mean my parent is a monster or that I was a traumatized child. The expectation that parents will be whatever this idea of a perfect parent is should probably just continue being normalized. I don't know, it's just unrealistic and I don't know, and I think if you think about your own parents that way and you are somebody who wants kids, what hellish expectation are you putting on yourself to be perfect, to never say the wrong thing, to think every single second of every single day, did I just do something by accident that's going to be an indelible memory that my child carries with them and hates me for? I mean, Jesus Christ, how can you even live?
Yeah, but when I talk about shortcomings in this specific context, that's a valid point. Because what you said, I mean, I don't know if we're overly sensitive now, in general, people, but there are some things that maybe seem absurd to the three of us. Like, I don't know, being traumatized
Everything?
by, I don't know, being traumatized by something that for us would be like, what? I mean, I went through worse, I'm fine. But some people are really honestly traumatized by them. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're all different in that sense. But that's not what I meant. What I meant was more about, for example, a parent who is not there, like it's not physically or emotionally present in their lives, in their children's lives, and they make up for that with material things, which happens a
Gotcha.
lot. And so they always are like, oh no, but they made the best they could with the information and the experience and blah, blah, blah that they had. They love you so much, whatever. That's the thing that I hear all the time. And this is the kind of thing that will take you to go to therapy afterwards because you actually need to deal with this, things like that. I'm talking about my personal experience specifically. So, and so when I said, when people say that, how much of that is actually true? And you did say there are some parents who actually don't even try their best. But if someone is, for example, really uninterested in having children and they haven't even realized that that's a choice and then they have a kid, how is it not their best to sort of like just feed the child at least so it doesn't die and then not being able to do anything else because it's not even physically or mentally possible for them? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm not trying to bring up the age of the child, but seriously, that's exactly what Catherine does in the age of the child. She doesn't want her kid to die. She doesn't want to neglect her. She doesn't want to not feed her kid. Like she does everything she can to take care of her, but she does not attach emotionally. I think she could have done better. She chose not to. Like, I think if you don't want a child, there's like as soon as you attach, you are, I would think you're losing yourself, you know? I don't know.
It-
But that's a choice, I think.
yeah. My mom said that to me. She's like, I did the best I could. And just for context of that, it was after I left home. So I left home right after high school. I was 18. And I'm trying to think, it was either, I don't know, we were on speaking terms at that point. So it was either like the year I graduated high school or I'd left home and had, I would come back and visit. But it was after like the really, really terrible point in our mother-daughter relationship, which was between 15 and 17. And this was when, and I mean, I've shared the story a million times of going to therapy. My parents put me in therapy, all that good stuff as a teenager, and the therapist sided with me. Yay. But she said that to me. She took me out for dinner or lunch or what at one point, and we were talking about the expectations of women in the organization, sect, cult that I was raised in. And at that point, I was able to dress how I wanted to. So I was still wearing dresses, but I was able to dye my hair and do all these things. And the conversation came up about appearance and stuff. And, my mom, because my mom had to go to therapy as well. And it was to walk her through being accepting of the choices that I was making that were different from how I was raised. And so that's the context of when she said to me, I did the best I could because, oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it was talking about appearance. We were talking about another lady who belonged to that community. And, she clearly dyed her hair and there was an uproar about it. And we were just talking about things. And, I must have said something to my mom about, always putting me in dresses or whatever. And to me, when she said that, I'm not going to say it was an apology to me because she still believed in that, those guidelines, those rules. She believed in what the community standard was. She also had a daughter that was not abiding by that. And she had to work through whatever she had to work through to deal with that, right? So later on, after she passed, I learned from people who knew my parents, who were friends with my parents and had since left, that my parents never they quietly didn't believe everything, but they didn't tell us kids what they believed and what they didn't. So I had to do definitely some mental gymnastics trying to figure out like what did my mom mean when she had that conversation, because that conversation, like, I mean, the details are fuzzy at this point because it's been a very, very long time, but I had to work. I remember having to work through like, well, what was she referring to specifically? And did she realize her mistake or her error or whatever, or her misjudgment of raising me with that expectation that I would fall in line? And when I said no, all that, because we went through hell with that. It was terrible. It was it's like the only time in my life I was suicidal because I didn't know what else to do. Right. So it was just like, it was brutal. Never want to go back to that experience again. And so I think when, when parents say they did, or when someone says they did the best they did, I mean, I too am suspicious of that. I mean, my own parents, like, I know why they chose to raise us that way. I totally disagree with it. I get the intent, but the reality is a bit damaging. And, I've again have had to work through my feelings and get to a relationship, a point where I've got a good relationship with my dad now. It took a very long time. And my story is not horrendous compared to a lot of people. So I am very lucky that way, but it's a very real conversation. And I really want to push for more of those conversations where people can be honest about, how they felt about how they were raised, because it's like, I do take that really, really seriously. It's kind of hard for me to put that into words right now, even though I'm rambling, but it's just, it's people are just way too flippant about having kids and thinking, well, I'll do the best I can. And everyone goes through childhood scars. And yeah, that's true. But for fuck's sake, like, think about it more, because people are rarely honest with with the impact their upbringing had, and I mean, there's no one's going to have a perfect experience, but and not to sound antinatalist, but like, it kind of sucks. I just, and I wish people were more real about it. It just because I again, I don't want to put someone through that, and I wouldn't be a terrible parent. I wouldn't, like, I don't want to dedicate myself to parenthood, because I would have that expectation of myself because I saw my mom do that. She was a dedicated mom, and I would fully put that expectation on myself. And I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to live. I'm not meant for that. I know I'm not meant for that, but so many people do it anyway. And that's just terrible for everybody, even if they make it work.
I think that's because many people don't know that not having children is a choice. I mean, they still don't know it. So that's why we do this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why we do this is because we want more people to be aware that it is a choice. That parenthood is just one of the different paths that you can take in life. So after this conversation, what's the conclusion? Does our upbringing influence our choice to be child-free or not? Did I cut out again?
No.
No.
I'm just watching Kristen's reaction to see what she has to say.
I would say it influences who we are, and who we are will either decide to have children or not have children.
Well, how do I top that? I'm going to say it can influence our initial decision and then what we do going forward, whether we maintain that choice or not. I think our more mature understanding can I'm going to say overrule, even if it still is in line with our initial choice. But basically what Kristen said, because I do believe that. I mean, when you word it like that, it's hard to argue. I don't want to argue, but okay, fine. Yes, to a point. But we still have. I still feel like at some point you let go of that. You can let go of it and make or continue your choice or change your mind or whatever. Don't yell at me for saying change your mind. You can make your decision more from like where you are now, what you've learned about yourself.
And also, that childhood doesn't necessarily have to be bad to influence us to not have kids. There were so many people who commented on our Instagram post with this similar topic saying, my childhood was amazing. So I didn't want to have kids. I was enjoying my life. I mean, I had a great time. It had nothing to it didn't negatively impact anything in a way that would lead to the horrible choice to not have a child.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. I was going to say our upbringing and our childhood definitely has influence in our choices, but that doesn't necessarily mean that bad childhood equals child free and good childhood equals parent, which is the myth that is out there. Right, so that is all for this episode. Thank you so much for hanging with us until this moment. As you know, or maybe not, you can reach us, childfreegirls@gmail.com. We receive all types of emails. Don't send any attachments. We don't open those, but send us good wishes, ideas for topics, topic ideas, questions, congratulations. Tell us what you think. Our website is childfreegirls.com. And do remember that we have this special column in our blog called Dear Childfree Girls. So if you have any questions, comments, or anything on your child-free life that you want us to sort of like weigh in, it's not exactly an advice column. It's more like a feedback column. Just let us know, send us an email, and we'll definitely answer your question.
We need more congratulations, just for whatever random reason.
Yes, send them over. Yeah. We love you. We love reading those.
I mean, it has been 3 years that we've been doing this consistently, so it's worth it. Okay, so you can find us all over social media. We are at Childfree Girls on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and we are you can find us on Amazon at our book. What am I trying to say? Shush. Childfree Girls Comfort Food for Thoughts. Hey, I've been good up until this point. Come on.
You've been good. You've been good.
What?
You've been good.
Okay.
I love closing.
Hang on, I'm finished plugging.
I'm sorry.
It's not finished.
I have to restart that. I don't know what happened.
Oh, that was so good though.
I don't know what happened. Okay, you can find us on Instagram. No, what? No, my God. You can find us on Amazon.
I'm gonna die.
For fuck's sake. Okay. Okay. Look, I've been sick for 3 days. My brain has finally gotten back to almost normal. Okay, you can find us on Amazon. Our book, Childfree Girls Comfort Food for Thought, is available in paperback and on Kindle. Okay, Kristen. Oh, right. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and I think on Apple as well, if you feel so inclined. Yeah.
Our question for you today is, did your childhood directly, can you look back at your childhood and say that anything in your childhood did, whether positive or negative, directly influence your decision to not have a child, or if you do have kids, to have a child? You can email your answer to us, or you can leave it in the comments. I think the comments are a little bit more fun because it's fun to see a conversation going there, but you can also email it to us if it's private or something at the aforementioned email address, which is childfreegirls@gmail.com.
Don't forget to tune in a couple of weeks for our newest episode.
Bye.
Bye.